Chosen one, the trap they set for you just became evidence against them. You didn't realize it at first. When they laid the trap, when they whispered your name into rooms you weren't invited into, when they smiled in your face but sharpened their intentions in secret, you thought you were being attacked. You thought this was just another season of endurance. But what if you were never the defendant? What if the moment they tried to frame you, heaven began building a case against them? Chosen one, something shifted the second they decided to move against you. Not emotionally. Not socially. Spiritually. And the realm you cannot see took meticulous notes. They believed they were clever. They thought the lies would stick. They assumed the pressure would expose weakness. But they did not understand a divine principle that has governed eternity long before their insecurity was born. Every trap set against the aligned becomes evidence in their defense. You were never scrambling to survive. You were standing inside a courtroom you didn't even know had convened. And every whisper, every manipulation, every calculated betrayal was entered into record, not as proof of your guilt, but as proof of their intent. Here is what they failed to comprehend. Number 1, the accusation was the activation. The moment they pointed a finger at you, heaven weighed their heart. The second they tried to distort your name, their own character went under divine examination. They thought they were initiating your downfall. In reality, they triggered an investigation into themselves. You felt pressure, yes. Confusion, maybe. But while you were choosing silence over retaliation, the unseen realm was choosing justice over delay. The trap was not a weapon. It was a spotlight. Pause and consider this carefully. Why has their life felt unstable since the moment they moved against you? Why have alliances around them begun to shift? Why has exposure crept closer without you lifting a finger? Because when someone targets a soul that walks in alignment, the backlash does not come from emotion. It comes from order. And divine order does not need your defense to function. It only needs truth to remain still long enough to surface. They mistook your calm for vulnerability. They assumed your refusal to fight back meant you were cornered. But you were not cornered, you were covered. And while they were constructing narratives, heaven was constructing consequences. You see, chosen one, there is a difference between reaction and authority. Reaction screams. Authority observes. Reaction panics. Authority records. And while they reacted from ego, you remained positioned in restraint. That restraint became your strongest testimony. Number 2. The trap became documentation. Every false word now exists as written proof of motive. Every attempt to isolate you exposed their insecurity. Every scheme crafted in darkness became an exhibit stamped with their name. They thought secrecy protected them. They didn't realize intention echoes in realms where masks cannot survive. What they engineered in private is now being reviewed in a court where nothing can be edited. And the verdict? It is no longer leaning in their favor. You wondered why you were told to stay silent. Why every urge to defend yourself felt restrained. Why something within you said, wait. It wasn't weakness. It was strategy beyond your perspective. Because if you had fought in the flesh, it would have remained a human battle. But because you stood still, it escalated into a divine case. And divine cases do not expire. They unfold. Look at how the narrative is already shifting. The same people who doubted you are observing inconsistencies. The same voices that echoed accusations are now quieter. Doubt has begun creeping into their camp. And you didn't orchestrate any of it. That is what unsettles them the most. They expected retaliation. They prepared for confrontation. They rehearsed arguments. But they did not prepare for your composure. And composure under attack is terrifying to those operating in deception. Number 3. Your silence forced revelation. Because when you refuse to defend what heaven already validated, truth rises on its own schedule. The more they pushed, the more unstable they appeared. The harder they tried to stain your name, the clearer your integrity became. You became the contrast they could not control. And contrast always clarifies reality. Now something irreversible has begun. The trap they set has reversed direction. The questions once aimed at you are circling back toward them. Motives are being examined. Patterns are being noticed. And what they thought was a strategy has become a signature, one that traces back to their own insecurity and fear. They are starting to sense it. That quiet tightening around their circumstances. That subtle unraveling. They call it stress. They call it coincidence. But deep down, they know. Because heaven does not ignore injustice against the aligned. It transforms it into testimony. And this is only the beginning of what is being revealed. What you are about to see next will confirm what your spirit has suspected all along. The verdict is not just shifting. It is preparing to be announced. You feel it now, don't you? That subtle shift in the atmosphere. The same situation that once felt heavy now feels watched. The same accusations that once echoed loudly now sound uncertain. Something is turning. Something is tightening around the very people who thought they had you cornered. And they cannot explain why their confidence is thinning. They cannot understand why what once felt like control now feels like exposure. But you are beginning to understand. The courtroom is no longer quiet. They thought time would bury their intentions. They assumed distance would erase their fingerprints. But they forgot something eternal. Time does not erase truth. It uncovers it. And what was whispered in strategy is now being examined in scrutiny. What was disguised as concern is being revealed as envy. What was presented as correction is being exposed as control. The mask is slipping, and they can feel it. Listen closely. Number 4, the evidence is speaking without your voice. You were tempted to explain yourself. You were tempted to defend your name. You were tempted to confront every lie head-on. But something restrained you. That restraint was not passivity. It was positioning. Because when heaven defends you, it does not argue. It reveals. And revelation is far more devastating than retaliation. The inconsistencies in their story are surfacing. The aggression in their tone is being noticed. The pattern of their behavior is becoming undeniable. And you did not orchestrate any of it. They are beginning to contradict themselves. They are over-explaining. They are scrambling to maintain narratives that no longer align. Why? Because deception requires maintenance. Truth does not. Truth stands still and lets pressure expose what cannot hold its shape. And pressure is increasing. Have you noticed how their energy has shifted? Irritation. Restlessness. Subtle paranoia. They sense something slipping. They feel the weight of their own words returning to them. They thought they were writing your story, but they were drafting their own cross-examination. Every exaggeration. Every strategic omission. Every calculated move is now part of a record that cannot be edited. And what unsettles them most is this: you are not fighting back. Number 5, your composure has become the prosecution. Because calm in the face of accusation forces observers to question the accuser. Stability under pressure exposes instability in the aggressor. While they expected you to crumble, you remained consistent. While they anticipated emotional reaction, you demonstrated restraint. And that contrast has become louder than any defense you could have offered. People are watching. Not just what was said, but how it was handled. And your steadiness has become undeniable. This is where the reversal intensifies. The same trap designed to isolate you is now isolating them. The same narrative meant to damage your credibility is now damaging theirs. Relationships they relied on are quietly reassessing. Allies are asking silent questions. Doubt has entered their circle. And doubt, once planted, does not disappear easily. Understand this deeply. Divine justice does not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives with clarity. And clarity is far more dangerous to deception than confrontation ever could be. Because when clarity spreads, it dismantles illusions without drama. It simply reveals. And what is being revealed right now is motive. Number 6, motive is heavier than mistake. They could have recovered from misunderstanding. They could have repaired simple conflict. But intent is different. And intent leaves residue. The residue of jealousy. The residue of insecurity. The residue of control disguised as righteousness. That residue is being sensed by those around them. It is subtle, but it is undeniable. And the more they try to stabilize perception, the more frantic they appear. Meanwhile, look at you. You are not perfect. You are not without emotion. But you are aligned. And alignment carries a weight that deception cannot imitate. You kept moving. You kept building. You kept refining your character while they were busy refining their accusations. And growth under attack is evidence of authenticity. It proves that what you carry is not dependent on approval. Now the tension is shifting fully. The questions once directed at you are being redirected. Why were they so aggressive? Why did they push so hard? Why did they seem threatened? These are not your questions. They are emerging from observers. And once observers begin asking those questions, the narrative is no longer under the control of the one who started it. They are feeling the pressure of scrutiny. And scrutiny is uncomfortable when you know your hands are not clean. They replay conversations in their mind. They reconsider words spoken in haste. They sense consequences forming in ways they did not anticipate. And here is the truth they are slowly realizing: this never escalated because of you. It escalated because of what was already inside them. Chosen one, this is the turning point. The trap has not only failed. It has reversed. What was meant to corner you has become a corridor leading you forward. What was meant to humiliate you has become validation. And the verdict that once felt uncertain is now leaning unmistakably in your favor. But what happens next will not just vindicate you. It will expose them in ways they never prepared for. There is a moment in every divine reversal when silence breaks, not with noise, but with undeniable exposure. You are standing at that threshold now. What once operated in whispers is beginning to surface in patterns. What once felt like a coordinated attack is unraveling into visible desperation. And they can feel it. The confidence they once carried has thinned into defensiveness. The certainty they projected has shifted into justification. Because something they never accounted for has entered the equation: consequence. They believed they were controlling perception. They thought if they repeated the narrative enough, it would solidify as truth. But repetition does not transform lies into legitimacy. It only magnifies the cracks when pressure increases. And pressure has arrived. Number 7. Pressure reveals the architect. When scrutiny intensifies, the structure of deception cannot sustain itself. The very details they once manipulated are now being revisited. Conversations are being remembered differently. Timelines are being re-examined. And inconsistencies are surfacing in ways they cannot suppress. They are beginning to realize that what they constructed in haste is collapsing under examination. Not because you dismantled it, but because truth does not need reinforcement to endure. Watch how their tone changes. Watch how explanations become longer. Watch how blame subtly shifts away from you and onto circumstances. That is not coincidence. That is containment mode. When someone senses exposure approaching, they attempt to soften their own image. But image repair cannot erase recorded intent. And the more they attempt to manage perception, the more unnatural it appears. You, meanwhile, have not adjusted your rhythm. You did not escalate. You did not retaliate. You did not chase validation. And that steadiness is becoming unsettling to them. Because it suggests something far more powerful than defense, it suggests assurance. And assurance without explanation implies backing. They feel that backing, even if they cannot name it. Number 8, the unseen backing you is now undeniable. Doors that should have closed remained open. Opportunities that should have collapsed stabilized. Relationships that should have fractured strengthened. While they anticipated your decline, you experienced unexpected preservation. That preservation is not accidental. It is confirmation. When attacks fail to produce damage, it signals protection beyond human alignment. And they are noticing that what they initiated did not yield the outcome they predicted. This is where fear begins to whisper to them. Not fear of you, but fear of what they have activated. Because deep down, they understand something irreversible has occurred. Their words are no longer floating in air. They are documented in consequence. And consequences are patient. Have you sensed the subtle withdrawal? The reduced intensity? The quiet attempts to disengage without acknowledgement? That is not maturity. That is realization. They are beginning to comprehend that the battlefield they imagined does not exist in the way they thought. This was never a war between equals. It was a test of integrity. And integrity does not panic under examination. Number 9, exposure is more devastating than defeat. If you had fought publicly, they could have labeled it conflict. If you had retaliated emotionally, they could have framed it as mutual dysfunction. But your refusal to participate removed their shield. Now what remains is pure contrast, reaction versus composure, aggression versus restraint, manipulation versus alignment. And contrast clarifies character more than confrontation ever could. Observers are no longer neutral. They are discerning. They are revisiting moments that once seemed insignificant and recognizing patterns that now feel obvious. The energy of instability is attaching itself to the one who initiated it. And energy does not lie. It lingers. It exposes. It echoes. They are attempting to regain footing, but something has shifted permanently. The narrative is no longer in their hands. The more they try to redirect attention, the more attention intensifies. Because once doubt enters perception, it does not retreat easily. It spreads quietly, reshaping conclusions without announcement. And here is the part they fear most: you have not changed. You are not defensive. You are not anxious. You are not scrambling to correct every misunderstanding. Your peace has remained intact. And peace under pressure implies innocence more powerfully than any argument ever could. Number 10, the verdict is forming in silence. Not with dramatic declaration. Not with public humiliation. But with gradual, undeniable recognition. Recognition that the hostility was disproportionate. Recognition that the aggression lacked foundation. Recognition that the intensity originated from insecurity, not injustice. They sense the shift even before it is spoken aloud. They feel credibility slipping. They feel scrutiny tightening. They feel the weight of their own choices returning, not as chaos, but as accountability. And accountability cannot be negotiated once activated. Chosen one, understand this clearly, you were never fighting for survival. You were standing for exposure. The trap they set was never designed to destroy you, it was designed to reveal them. And now that revelation has begun, it cannot be reversed. But what unfolds next will not simply validate you. It will redefine the entire narrative in a way that leaves no room for doubt. Something irreversible is unfolding now. What began as subtle doubt is crystallizing into realization. The same people who once listened passively are now observing actively. The same environment that once felt clouded is clearing. And clarity, once it settles, cannot be undone. You are witnessing the quiet transfer of weight, from your shoulders to theirs. They are beginning to understand that the trap did not just fail. It documented them. Number 11, documentation becomes destiny. Every decision they made under the influence of envy has now become part of a larger narrative. Not the narrative they intended to create about you, but the one forming around them. The tone they used. The urgency they displayed. The disproportionate aggression. These details are no longer isolated incidents. They are patterns. And patterns speak louder than accusations. People are connecting dots that were once scattered. And when dots connect, perception shifts permanently. They assumed memory would fade. They underestimated awareness. What they failed to realize is that observers remember energy more than words. They remember who remained steady and who became frantic. They remember who escalated and who stayed composed. And memory, when paired with clarity, becomes conviction. You may not see the full picture yet, but trust what is happening beneath the surface. Conversations are changing tone. Curiosity is replacing assumption. Loyalty is being re-evaluated. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. And quiet shifts are the most powerful because they do not require announcement to take effect. Meanwhile, something else is happening inside them. Restlessness. Reflection they cannot escape. Moments when silence forces them to revisit their own intentions. Because when the noise dies down, conscience grows louder. And conscience is a courtroom no one can exit. Number 12. Conscience is the cross-examination. They may attempt to justify their behavior publicly, but internally, they know the truth. They know the exaggerations. They know the manipulations. They know the moments where ego guided decision instead of integrity. And that awareness does not disappear simply because the narrative is collapsing. It lingers. It presses. It reminds. You did not need revenge. Accountability is far heavier. Look at how their confidence has transformed into caution. Look at how their certainty has softened into careful language. They are no longer as bold. No longer as decisive. Because exposure has a way of draining arrogance. The more they sense the tide turning, the more restrained they become. Not from humility, but from calculation. They are measuring every word now. Because they know the spotlight has shifted. And here is what makes this reversal divine: you did not orchestrate it. You did not manipulate perception. You did not campaign for vindication. You remained aligned. And alignment carries authority that manipulation can never counterfeit. Number 13, authority without aggression is undeniable. Your strength was never in overpowering them. It was in outlasting them. While they burned energy trying to destabilize you, you preserved yours. While they obsessed over controlling the outcome, you focused on maintaining character. And character has endurance that strategy cannot imitate. Notice how opportunities are stabilizing around you. Notice how your path feels clearer, not heavier. Notice how doors that seemed threatened are now reinforced. That reinforcement is confirmation. When attacks do not produce collapse, it signals protection. And protection leaves a signature, preservation in the middle of pressure. They are beginning to recognize that the consequences unfolding are not random. The strain they feel is not coincidence. The instability in their circle is not unrelated. What they initiated is returning, not in chaos, but in correction. Correction that forces self-confrontation. And self-confrontation is the most uncomfortable form of justice. You were never required to defend yourself because the defense was built into your consistency. Every day you continued forward became silent evidence. Every calm response became testimony. Every refusal to engage became strength. And now that strength is being acknowledged by those who once hesitated. Number 14, the verdict is leaning, and they can feel it. Before it is spoken publicly, it is sensed privately. They sense the shift in respect. They sense the recalibration of trust. They sense that the narrative no longer belongs to them. And that awareness is heavier than any confrontation you could have delivered. Chosen one, understand this: the trap was not an interruption. It was an unveiling. It revealed your resilience. It revealed their insecurity. It revealed who operates from truth and who operates from fear. And once revealed, it cannot be concealed again. But this is not the final movement. What is about to happen next will not just confirm your innocence. It will elevate your position in ways that make the entire ordeal undeniable proof that you were never the target of destruction. You were the catalyst for exposure. Now the final movement begins. Not with noise. Not with spectacle. But with establishment. What was once uncertain is solidifying. What was once whispered is stabilizing into conclusion. And what they hoped would bury you has become the very platform elevating you. This is the part they never foresaw, not just exposure, but promotion. Because when a trap fails against the aligned, it does not return empty. It returns carrying proof. Number 15, proof produces positioning. The evidence that surfaced did more than clear your name. It clarified your stature. The way you handled pressure became reference. The way you maintained dignity became standard. The way you refused to descend into chaos became qualification. And qualification invites elevation. Not always publicly at first, but inevitably. Look closely. Respect around you feels different now. Subtle, but stronger. Conversations carry a tone of acknowledgement. Opportunities approach with less resistance. The same presence they tried to diminish now feels anchored. That anchoring is not coincidence. It is confirmation that endurance has weight. They are observing this too. The very growth they attempted to interrupt has accelerated. The credibility they tried to fracture has reinforced. The influence they attempted to isolate has expanded. And this expansion unsettles them more than exposure ever could. Because exposure humiliates. But expansion proves they failed. Number 16, expansion is the verdict made visible. It is one thing to survive accusation. It is another to thrive beyond it. When your life continues forward with clarity, when your stability strengthens instead of weakens, it sends a message no argument can refute. It declares that what targeted you lacked authority. And authority is what they believed they possessed. Now they must confront a difficult truth. The energy they weaponized did not destroy you, it refined you. The pressure they applied did not crush you, it clarified you. The scrutiny they initiated did not weaken you, it revealed your integrity. And integrity under fire becomes legacy. This is where divine reversal completes itself. What they designed as containment became propulsion. What they imagined as humiliation became distinction. What they framed as your flaw became their fingerprint. And fingerprints remain. You were not required to defend your destiny. You were required to remain aligned with it. And alignment has carried you through scrutiny without distortion. That is not accidental strength. That is cultivated discipline. Number 17, discipline outlasts deception. They operated from impulse. You operated from intention. They reacted emotionally. You responded strategically, even when that strategy was silence. They assumed silence meant surrender. It meant certainty. Because only someone who knows they are covered can afford not to panic. Notice how the atmosphere feels lighter now. Not because conflict never existed, but because it has concluded in clarity. The weight has shifted entirely. What once pressed against you is pressing against them. Not through revenge. Not through retaliation. But through realization. And realization is the most irreversible form of justice. People know now. Maybe not every detail. Maybe not every intention. But they know enough. Enough to recalibrate trust. Enough to adjust perception. Enough to understand that what was aimed at you did not originate from truth. And once perception corrects itself, it rarely returns to blindness. Number 18, your rise becomes instruction. Others are learning from how you handled this. They are observing the power of composure. They are witnessing the authority of restraint. They are recognizing that not every battle requires engagement to be won. Your survival has become demonstration. Your steadiness has become blueprint. And here is the profound reality, you did not win by overpowering them. You won by outlasting distortion. You won by refusing to compromise character. You won by allowing truth to surface in its own timing. That timing is what makes this victory unshakable. They must now live with the awareness that they activated their own exposure. They must reconcile the fact that their aggression elevated you. They must process the understanding that the person they tried to diminish was never beneath them, but beyond them. Chosen one, this was never about a simple conflict. It was about revelation. It was about distinguishing alignment from insecurity. It was about proving that traps set against integrity cannot prosper. The courtroom has grown quiet now. Not because nothing happened, but because everything has been established. The evidence stands. The contrast is clear. The verdict is visible in your stability, your growth, your elevation. And the most powerful truth of all? You did not fight to be vindicated. You simply remained who you were, and that was more than enough. If this message settled something inside you, stay connected. There is more unfolding than you can currently see. And the next elevation will not require defense either. Because when heaven rules in your favor, it does not whisper forever. It confirms, unmistakably.